you hear me? Louder? Softer? Microphone? Everything's good? Okay. As Scott said, I'm going to kind of just go over some of the statistics, development statistics, and some of the projects that we've got going on right now in the city, some upcoming projects and things to get a little excited about. Right now, here's just a little bit of information about commercial and industrial growth in the city. This year, in 2017-18, we've seen about 50 non-residential building starts, which is, some of you may understand, that's kind of unprecedented in this city. One of some of those numbers we haven't seen in a long time, if ever. In 2017 alone, there's been roughly $97 million of new residential value added to the city. In 2018, we've seen just under $25 million. Some permit statistics for you. 2018, here are some of the commercial residential permit ratios here on the chart. You can see in the yellow that's single family, so we still have a lot of single family permits that are coming in. Kind of tapered down over the end of the year, but still pretty high compared to the rest of the permits that we are issuing right now. That kind of leads into some of the general trend that we've seen with residential in the city in the past 50 or so years. You'll notice the peak point right there is in the early 2000s when the housing market was booming pretty high. And that giant drop is right when the recession happened. We saw a big hit, very low number of residential permits. And over time, we've been building our way back up, and currently where we are, we're still going higher. So that trend is still on the rise. This is the single-family and duplex permits that have been issued in the last year on the county. This is a comparison, really, between Madison, Fitchburg, Verona, and Middleton. This is from 2018 up to October. 165 single-family permits and duplex permits have been issued to date. And actually, as of April this year, we were actually leading in that number. We had the most single-family and duplex permits issued in the county. So Sun Prairie is very much on the high rise of that number. Where is some of that residential growth happening? Here's just kind of an overall city chart, kind of highlighting some of the points that you can see more of the residential development happening. It is pretty scattered around, north, east, west. Smith's Crossing, we still have a lot of east side development happening, so it's pretty much scattered around the city. Kind of pointing out right here on the left, there is a new addition to Smith's Crossing that is currently being reviewed. It's called the McCoy addition. You'll see it kind of outlined by this orange circle here. It's different than the stars because it's still under review and approval, but it's going to add a lot more area to that Smith's Crossing, kind of complete out that subdivision, and everyone's really excited to see that happen. Some of our featured projects, as you've probably seen driving around the city, we've had some businesses grow and some businesses move. Beans and Cream opened a second location down on Main Street, and Cannery Square moved into those McHenry apartment commercials. So we've got that commercial area seeing tenants. New business park development and new patio pleasures, business expansion and redevelopment or redesign of their buildings. So a lot of new stuff happening right there over on Main Street in the business park. West side, I'm sure everyone sees what's happening on the west side, so I won't go too crazy about it, but we just completed and opened the Hilton Garden Inn over there on the west side of near Cabela Drive and Grand Ave. Menards, again, brand new Menards, brand new bigger Menards over there on Grand Avenue, opened up later this year. And Tipsy Cow right now, one of the new tenants coming into the Prairie Lakes area, is set to open hopefully in the next month, maybe sometime around end of the year. Again, on the west side, Home Goods, TJ Maxx, there was a lot of discussion about that, and that is being constructed right next to Target, right in the west side of Target. There's going to be another outlaw building with a bunch of new tenants, maybe even a restaurant, so there's some new things we're looking forward to new commercial sites coming in there. And that bottom picture shows currently that they are in construction. They've got parking lot, paving ins, or curbing in, so they're moving along pretty quickly. Grand on Main, it's just its name, Grand and Main. It's going to be some great development with 4 buildings or 5 buildings or something of that sort. So we got mixed commercial. There's a Who Hut that has been approved. That's being in construction right now, right across from the west side building on that northwest corner of the roundabout. Again, that bottom picture shows that they are in construction right now, and I think we're looking at more of the spring-summer opening for one of those tenants. Some other west side projects that are in the works right now, we haven't seen any sort of construction or anything happening yet, but we are getting those final approvals done. There's been a Hy-Vee convenience store, something a little different than the traditional grocery store, a little smaller scale stopping point, as well as a Sugar River Pizza everyone's been talking about. That will also be on the west side near Cabela Drive. And then another building near the hotel is going to have a commercial tenant going. Downtown's seen a lot of action as well. Businesses have grown, new businesses have moved in. Again, Full Mile Brewery and Ripe Hour. We've got 2 new breweries coming downtown. Hopefully everyone has been to Ripe Hour, it's open, and they've got some good stuff happening. Full Mile hopefully will be open very soon as well. And as you can see out there on the screen, there's been a lot of new businesses that have come to the downtown area. So come on shopping down there. Many of you know, again, we've got a new business park that's opened up near Smith's Crossing, right on Ryder Road in Grand. There's 2 new buildings right now in construction out there. The roads are being put in, so we're looking again to see that area open up very soon. Santa Manic is actually one of the businesses that are going into that top building there on the right. That's not the only business park development. Our Sun Prairie Business Park has got some things in the works right now, some active developments that are being reviewed, and we have a new research facility being proposed on Progress Way and Columbus Road, as well as a new Palmer Johnson building going in off of Haynes Drive right across from their existing Palmer Johnson facility. And then we can't forget Main Street Residential. The Catalyst, right where the Hanley Hardware site was, big investment, new mixed use. We've got some commercial on the first floor, a lot of residential on the upper floors. That is in construction right now as well. And then the Main Street apartment building, remember the Tushin trucking site was on Main Street in Foxdale. So that's going to be looking to be constructed in 2019, and they're slated to start taking tenants in 2020.
All right. Back to me. So again, I mentioned we've got some other planning activity going on, non-development projects that we wanted to make you aware of. Basically what I'm going to cover, I think Ann mentioned it, everyone's probably aware, we're in the process of updating our comprehensive plan. We're also going to give you a little bit of information, some updates on workforce housing. I already did that at a chamber session earlier this year, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the workforce housing. Some information on the proposed express bus service that you may have read about in the paper. That was incorporated into the 2019 budget, and then a few other projects. So start with the comprehensive plan. We started that project earlier this year. Things got going probably in March. We plan to complete that by July of 2019. So that's our goal, is to be done next summer and bring that plan forward for consideration. We're replacing our current plan, which was adopted in 2009. And as you can imagine, a few things have changed in Sun Prairie since 2009. So we think this project is kind of overdue, and we need to get through this process. The project is being overseen by a steering committee of 20 people, selected by the mayor and city council, and we meet monthly to kind of talk about various topics. We're kind of systematically going through the required topics that we need to cover per the state statutes, and then other issues. And the steering committee kind of acts as a sounding board for ideas, and kind of a way to get discussion about policy issues and about big issues in the community. What are we going to do about housing? What are we going to do about transportation? What should our plans say about this or that? So that's kind of the role of the steering committee. We've hired a consultant, MSA Professional Services, who is preparing the plan and working with staff to kind of draft the plan. And then that steering committee is our sounding board, basically. We're doing the best we can to get some public input. Some of you may recall back in May we had a series of public forums where we invited people in to kind of give us their thoughts and ideas, show us where the problems are, tell us your ideas, gather that information. We did a community survey at that time as well in May and June, and I'm going to have some results of the survey up here in a moment. Right now we're in the process of going through about 15 focus groups. So we've met with renters, we've met with seniors, we've met with the chamber board, actually was one of our focus groups. Just various groups. Where the last one we're trying to set up is a session with realtors, developers, builders, that kind of a group to kind of get their thoughts as well. What should we be doing? Where do our policies need to change? What's happening in Sun Prairie, and what should we be kind of shooting for in the years to come? So trying to get that kind of input. And then of course working with various city boards and commissions, staff groups, other groups to try to get as much information as we can wrapped into this plan. What I wanted to do this afternoon is talk about the community survey a little bit. So the survey results came out this summer. We haven't really had a chance to come out and really tell anybody about them other than, we issued a press release and we've been talking with the steering committee about that. So I thought I'd give you a quick overview. We had just over 2,000 people take the survey. About 1,700 of those folks were able to get through the whole survey. It was kind of long, so not everyone finished it, but we still got a lot of good information. One thing that we need to kind of do is acknowledge that this wasn't a scientific survey. It was an online survey. It was also available as a handwritten survey, but we did not go out and do sampling and try to hit a certain percentage. So what we do in that situation is try to compare the demographics of the people that took the survey with the demographics of the community. What we found out is that the people responding to the survey were a little overrepresented: females, white, non-Hispanic individuals, homeowners, people in that 30 to 49 year old age group, and then folks with medium to high income households all took the survey at a higher rate than we would have expected based on our community demographics. So conversely, folks not in those groups were a little bit underrepresented. Doesn't make the survey invalid. I think it's just something that we have to kind of keep in mind as we're looking at individual results. And one example that I'll show you in a moment, we got pretty strong favorable response towards sidewalks on our street reconstruction project. That was an issue we wanted to ask about. One would expect homeowners might be a little bit less interested in sidewalks. It does impact their properties. Just recognizing the fact that homeowners were actually overrepresented and there was still support for that issue is something to keep in mind as you're talking about sidewalks and trying to figure out where to go with policies related to that topic. So just a quick example. But some of the things that kind of came out and jumped out at us as part of that survey, some are not surprising, some were a little surprising. Concerns about taxes, I think that's a kind of universal concern, no big surprises there. Strong opposition to apartments. We've been hearing that from the community. We've seen a lot of changes in that area recently, so that was not a big surprise. What was a little bit of a surprise, though, is that all other sectors, people are generally comfortable with the level of growth we're seeing or want more. We kind of expected we might see some pushback because there has been a lot of growth in the community in recent years. I certainly hear about that from people. When are we going to slow down? In general, residents seem to support that growth. They like that growth. Not everyone, but a majority. Renters are more concerned about housing affordability than homeowners. One of the things that kind of jumped out. Generally, and this isn't a surprise, we did some visual preference work in the survey, so we showed pictures and tried to get people's reactions, whether they thought they were appropriate for Sun Prairie or not. Generally, kind of that small town feel or moderate scale development, not a strong positive reaction to the larger scale development, so something that we need to keep in mind as we're moving forward. Not much support for sustainability initiatives. That was a bit of a surprise in the survey. Strong support for bus transit, and we actually followed up on that, and I'll talk about transit in a moment. We followed up on that and did another survey this summer to get a little more information about the desire for transit service. And then lastly here, just a real strong, and this is coming out not only in the survey but also in the focus groups. Just about every group we are talking to talks about bike infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure. So real strong support for that type of infrastructure in the city. And just as some examples, we asked questions about sidewalks. Do you support sidewalks when streets are being reconstructed or not? And we found out that except for cul-de-sacs, people are generally supportive of the idea of adding sidewalks to neighborhoods as we rebuild those streets. Off-road paths was the top ranking park and recreation improvement. So there was a big list of items that they could choose from. Off-road paths was number one. Bicycle and pedestrian facilities were the second ranked item. So we asked, would you support increasing tax spending on various topics? Number two. And then again, kind of another one that was similar to the question about ranking park and rec improvements, but we provided 8 potential park and rec type of improvements and asked people to rank them. And signing and marking a citywide bike trail was the number 1 thing that people wanted to see out of that list. And number 3 was add more off-street paths. So very strong support for the idea of pedestrian and bike infrastructure. So now moving on from the survey to the workforce housing topic, just wanted to, just a quick update. It's still something that's on the radar. There's not a lot of activity right now in this area, but we did add last year the McHenry apartments, so 37 workforce housing units. And by workforce housing, what we mean there is housing that is supposed to be affordable for folks that make 60% or less of the Dane County median income. So for a single individual, I think that's in the high 30s. For a family, in the 50s or 60s in terms of family income. So rents are held on those 30, so that's a 74-unit building. Half of the units in that building, the rents are held down to be affordable for folks in those situations. The Main Street apartments, which will start here in 2019, an additional 54 units. So trying to make a dent in some of the housing needs in the community through these projects. These are tax credit developments, so assisted by the state Department of Housing, WIDA. So we're making a dent there. The explosion downtown, we lost some of our most affordable housing units in the city. Some of those units had rents as low as $450, some just over $500. Those units are probably not coming back. It's very difficult to put new units on the market in those price ranges. So kind of 2 steps forward there, 1 step back here dealing with workforce housing. The mayor, Neil, and I participated in the Dane County Housing Summit. A lot of good information there. But unfortunately, the message kind of coming out of that group is the needs are growing. Even though communities are doing what we can to try to provide more affordable housing, the needs are growing. It's going to be an issue that's facing us in the decades to come. A couple of good things that are going on. We don't have any projects right now in the hopper in terms of more workforce housing, but Habitat for Humanity does have stuff going on in Vandenberg. They've got a piece of property they're developing there where they will bring on 11 affordable single-family homes. They're working in that neighborhood to help upgrade other homes. And then they've just purchased some land on the east side, and we haven't seen any details on this yet, but on Town Hall Drive, just on the east side of Sun Prairie, they will be working to develop a new neighborhood that has a mix of affordable and market rate units. So something to look forward to in terms of getting at this workforce housing issue. Now let's move on to transit. I mentioned that earlier. In case you haven't heard, the City Council has allocated some money in 2019 to support an express bus service connecting Sun Prairie to Madison that will run in the morning and in the evenings. I think there's 3, 4 runs? 6 total?
6 each way.
6 each way?
6 mornings, 6 evenings.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
3 buses.
3 buses, yeah. So that's exciting. Madison Metro, we've been kind of approaching Madison Metro in recent years, and they haven't really had the infrastructure to support it, but they've had some changes to their service in Madison that has freed up a couple of buses, indicated to us that this is a possibility for 2019, and the council incorporated some money in the budget to help make this happen. If all goes well, this service could start as early as September 1 of 2019. But just to kind of explain what this is, because we've got a few questions about whether this is really the right service for Sun Prairie or not. So the express bus service will essentially provide a direct connection from Sun Prairie to downtown Madison with very limited stops in between. So it will be, I believe the length of the trip is about 25 minutes. So the idea to get people interested and make this a service that people will be attracted to is to make that service as quick as possible. We don't have the full results for our transit service survey back yet, but the preliminary results indicate that there would be enough riders, and there's actually a lot of interest in this. People that work downtown that are currently paying a lot of money for parking. Sometimes their companies provide a bus pass, so they're kind of missing out. They're paying for parking. They're also, they have the ability to get a free bus pass, but they can't take advantage of it. We think those folks would be very much attracted to this service. So we think this will be successful. The long-range plan for Sun Prairie is to not only deal with that express service, we also want to be able to get people around Sun Prairie. Unfortunately, that requires a lot of infrastructure, a lot of buses. It's a lot more cost. In those local routes, we can't really combine these two because those local routes, if you're going to provide good service, provide access for people in Sun Prairie, requires a lot of stops and a lot of time. So by doing that, you're essentially removing the express from that express route. I've got a little cheat sheet here on the differences between express and local, but I think the main difference is the express is that quick, direct, not many stops. You can be sure that you're going to get to work on time. The local service, much more stops. It prioritizes access over speed. So ultimately, I think we're going to see in Sun Prairie some combination of those, a way to get around Sun Prairie and connect to this express route. The express route is where we're kind of starting. It is a little more affordable. It's doable right now. Metro can't support the local routes at this time, and we think that there's interest and this can be successful. We did look at a number of different alternatives for that route, and a lot of this work still needs to be done. We're going to work with Metro to determine what is the best service here? Do we stop at Easttown? Do we stop at MATC? Every stop you make, obviously adds time and makes that service a little bit less desirable for folks trying to get from one end to the other. But we think this will also provide an opportunity for workers in Sun Prairie to get out, or sorry, workers or residents in Madison who work in Sun Prairie to get out to Sun Prairie. So I think we want to look and study those other possible stops and see what makes sense. So people have kind of questioned, is this really helping folks in Sun Prairie that lack transportation right now and can't get around? And it may not be the best service right away, but ultimately we'll get there. But what it does is this. So if you're able to hit those express morning routes or the evening routes with one transfer, let's say we have a stop at Easttown, a stop at MATC, and a stop downtown. With just one transfer onto the rest of the metro system, you can access essentially the entire metropolitan area fairly conveniently for transit. So we think this really does open up a service. It doesn't bring people from their homes, like a local route would, to the service, but it takes care of 90% of that trip that they might have into Madison. They need to figure out how to get to wherever that express pickup route is, and it opens up the rest of Madison for them. All right, just moving on then, a few items to look forward to in 2019 that I thought were kind of related to what we do here. We have some money was put in the budget in 2019, which, by the way, the budget was adopted on Tuesday night, so we're all happy. That's behind us. There's a lot of work that goes into that, and so we're always happy when that happens. But we should start seeing more on-street bike lanes being striped around town. I think we're going to start on West Main Street and maybe Thompson Road, but we have a bike subcommittee now that works under our Transit Commission that is looking and trying to prioritize those routes, so we should see more of that again.